everyone, and welcome to this panel. The scope of the panel today is actually to discuss the opportunities and the challenges in rolling out the Smart Cities mission. I think of all of the bombastic programs that were announced by the government when they came to power about 4 years ago, the Smart Cities one is actually something that captured our imagination in a very real way, because these are the cities that we inhabit. And the thought of them becoming smarter, not just for us, but for the larger population, at least in my mind, was something that was quite interesting. But over the years, if we have to kind of just take a status check of where things stand, and do take these numbers with a pinch of salt, because we must realize that the 100th smart city, Shillong, was only announced last evening actually. So even the process of identifying these 100 cities has taken about 4 years. So the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs actually put out a status check report about sometime last month, and these are some of the numbers that stood out for me. Only 6.4% of all the announced projects have been completed. 70% of them are still at a report stage, and therefore only about 1.8% of all the funds that were released for these cities have been utilized. Now, the way in which the Smart Cities project was envisioned was that the government put out a very broad framework and left it up to the states to decide what these cities were, and then set up a special purpose vehicle, so to speak, which would be led by a CEO who would then work with various stakeholders to define what were the projects that were best suited to run in those cities to make them smart. Now, given that this was the framework with which the government decided to roll out the project, I'd like to go across to each of our panelists and start by asking them to imagine what they believe to be the vast opportunity of what can be achieved in each of these cities. Alok, do you want to start?
Okay. So again, smart city, so as it says, city has this physical infrastructure, and the smartness comes much more from the electronics and IT and the cyber component of it. So you're right, Syna, it just got started. It could have been accelerated, but nonetheless, identification of all these cities and taking them through takes time. So it is at its infancy in some sense. But I would like to highlight, we will discuss a bit more on the technology side of it, but being the first speaker, let me just highlight 2 key points, which is non-technical but very important for smart city evolution. As we talk about India ascending, it's these 2 things has to ascend also. One is a kind of citizenship awareness. How do you optimize your power usage? Do you use solar power? How do you conserve your water? Do you do water harvesting? How do you manage and handle your solid waste? How do you treat them? All these are very fundamental questions, and without citizenship awareness ascending, it's difficult. And the second part of it, I must say, is the governance of it, right? Because this is one topic. It's covering so many gamuts of things that it cannot be just private players or public sectors. The government has to be integrated and has to play that solid role. There are many civic bodies, and how do you coordinate them? How do you motivate them? We see, the roads are built, and then it is dug for the water pipes to come. It's just the opposite order. So these things need to be fixed. And once we do that, we want to make sure, a dollar that is invested is percolating down in the right way to get there. And with these 2 things right, then you get to the smart city platforms. And all those 100 cities that you talked about, they are well organized across 5 different categories, I believe. There are heritage cities, there are small population cities, there are large population cities, and each one will have their characteristics. So to me, to tell very crisply in terms of what is a smart city, in my opinion, it needs to retain its characteristics. It is not about homogenizations, it is about accentuations of the city's characteristics. I don't want to make Varanasi a Bangalore. I don't want Pune to be a financial hub. There is Mumbai next door. Pune can be an university city. So this is how we need to bring it. And the second aspect is the sustainability. Sustainability is all about resources, that economist's hotbed. What you come in and what goes out needs to be balanced. Again, as we do this, we can apply different technologies and then solve it, and we can talk more in the next round, possibly.
All right. Sanjeev, for you, what is your imagination of what a smart city stands for? It's a pretty open, so that, like I said, the government left it pretty open-ended. In your imagination, what is it? What is a wider opportunity? And perhaps you want to contextualize it for us in the scope of some of the work that Ericsson has already done in a place like Bhopal with the Smart Poles initiative.
Okay. So the concept of smart city itself, I think it's open to interpretation. Depends on geographies, depends on, but if you apply it in the context of India, to me, smart cities is a lot more about doing the infrastructure development first. So maybe a little bit contrary to what you said, Alok, but technology certainly plays a role. But that comes as an overlay on top of the underlay. Underlay, a lot of work still needs to be done on infrastructure. If you look at transportation, sanitary facilities that we have in different parts of India, including cities like Bangalore, that needs a lot of work before you start calling something as a smart city, because you need to make sure that the basic facilities, transportation,
water,
housing,
sanitation,
all of those things, yeah, sanitation,
education,
exactly.
perhaps.
Those need to be taken care of first. And then when I think of smart cities, it's something on top of that. When you talk of smart traffic management, yes, you could apply traffic management to improve the traffic situation in India itself. Yes, that can be done. But a lot more can be done just by pure enforcement. I don't think today's problems with traffic have anything to do with technology. Right? So, it's a
But
pretty...
perhaps it's the idea about how you can actually use technology to even make basic decisions around infrastructure better. For instance, what Alok said, I think we've all grown up with the experience of having roads outside our homes first dug up for telephone lines. I remember at one point of time, telephone landlines. Then there would be a water pipe project. Then there would be, maybe over a period of time, then fiber optics laid. Maybe if the government was using technology or information or data in a better manner, they would know how to kind of bring all of these processes together at one point of time and therefore execute better.
Certainly. I mean, some of the technologies that you talked about, analytics, data gathering, all of that has to be applied to solve some of the problems that we're talking about. But let me also relate back to the question that you were asking about what is Ericsson doing in this area. So Ericsson has been pretty big in the area of IoT and 5G, and these are very closely related technologies to smart cities. Within India, Ericsson has doubled down on the growth that is expected from India, the whole Digital India and the 100 Smart Cities initiative that has been taken up. But to cite some of the examples, for example, in Bhopal, we have a partnership with, I believe it's Bharti Infratel. We've invested close to 750 crores in developing something called smart poles. Now they provide citywide coverage, Wi-Fi coverage, but these smart poles also have things like LED lighting, which is sensor-driven, so it automatically turns on and off. It does video surveillance, traffic management, PA systems, those kind of things. That's why they're called smart.
You can charge EVs on it, I think, electronic
That's right,
vehicles,
yeah. So all those things, then we also, if you apply to the agriculture part, then we have something called connected aquaponics. So we do smart water grid management. We've done some projects in Andhra Pradesh. But this is just starting to scratch the surface. I believe that the quantum leap of smart cities, the initiative itself is great, fantastic. I think it's a bold declaration and something that's very, very needed. I feel proud of it as a citizen of India, but long ways to go.
Santhosh, what are your impressions? And perhaps you want to pick up the stream of basic infrastructure delivery and building up vis-a-vis adding that technology or digital later, which at least Sanjeev believes is value added at a much later stage once we get the basics right.
Good morning to all of you. I want to wish all of you yoga enthusiasts here happy International Yoga Day. It actually makes sense to talk about it here for 30 more seconds because it actually talks about how holistic human development is required, and everything that we've actually talked about smart cities and what we envisage that we will do is really about holistic, right? I look at smart cities in two ways, right? One is really the green cities, which are relatively more easier from a technology perspective to get it done, and the brown cities where existing cities are there and we got to go back and change, right? We believe that technology can be deployed in 3 phases over there. First phase is actually in the architecture and design of it. The second phase is really in the construction of what we are actually talking. And third thing is really about the sustenance of the stuff. What we have actually seen right now in the last 2-3 years in India, significantly more players are actually playing on the sustenance phase of it, right? People coming back and saying that, look, if you have to do something for better meters, how are we trying to do that? Be it electricity, be it water, be it gas and whatnot. How do you do better parking for, how do we use technology for parking, right? Several of those problems that are addressed today where we play a lot with the multinational companies, Indian companies, startups over there, here in India in a big way, are more around the sustenance part of it. Lighting, we have actually seen a lot of progress happening on those in select cities over there, right? We would actually like to see technology deployed using sensors far more widely initially to go back and make better designs first, right? I mean, that's part of what you're actually talking, Sanjeev, to about how do we really get a better infrastructure initially, right? We believe technology can be deployed there as well as a better means to go and make a change.
So, if I know this correctly, and from our discussion earlier in the morning, Santhosh, you actually alluded to not working directly with the governments, but actually supplying a lot of material that a lot of other companies or startups are using that do win the tenders for the smart city projects, right? But in doing that work, you've spent a considerable amount of time studying various government and urban planning body, sort of papers and notes that come out. What is your impression of how robust some of those blueprints are, correct? Because if we get it wrong at the blueprint stage, if you're not imagining it correct, if you're not designing it correct from a thought perspective, at a blueprint stage via the government in terms of the tenders and notifications that go out, we aren't going to achieve too much, right?
Absolutely. I think it's an excellent point. I think what we actually believe is that the goals that the government has actually put saying that this is what we want to achieve, I think there is absolutely no doubt, no questions about it. These are really the right goals about it, right? What we have actually seen next is a bunch of designs at the lower level to go back and supplement some of those goals over there. What we believe is lacking is a overarching architecture that connects, right? The point that you said, Alok, about how do you really make Varanasi, and Bangalore, Bangalore? And we are not really going to copy everything that happens in Varanasi to Bangalore or vice versa, right? How do you really come up with an architecture specifically for a city that is actually rooted in its culture and where things actually have to be? We're not really seeing enough work on the overarching architecture blueprints over there, enough to the extent that we would like to see. But the ground level designs on what individual companies are doing, they seem to be fairly robust with the time frame that we've actually worked on.
All right. Alok, do you want to make a point here before we go to Sanjay?
I guess, it's getting approached from both sides. This is a top-down approach, and what are the cities that needs to do? And then there is a bottom-up approach that's also happening, which is a piecemeal, which could have happened, like a lot of traffic-related things could have been even done without smart city projects. So these two will meet sometimes, and I don't think we would get it right in one go. There would be an iterative process, there would be a substitutions and things like that, and we shouldn't be too much worried about getting it fully right. We should just get going. We are not there as a base smart city, so therefore, we just need to continue doing it, and hopefully if we look around and some of these intelligence here look into this architecture, then we can reduce the number of iterations, but we will still have the iterations.
What has been your experience, Sanjay?
Yeah, good morning all. Am I audible? Okay. So first of all, I think it's very important for us to take stock of the enormity of the problem or the opportunity that exists, right? So just a couple of numbers that were pretty staggering to me. I mean, it may not be new information to everybody. As a country today, 33% of our population resides in urban cities. And that number is going to go up to 40% by 2030. And that number is going to go up to close to 50% by 2040. So by 2045, we will be an urban majority country. In terms of economics, 60% of the GDP today is contributed by the urban cities. 80% of the tax payments are made by urban cities. So if you look at the essential urban facilities, only or less than 50% of the population in urban cities are served with essential facilities, essential services that meet the minimum acceptable levels today. And the problem is that this demand for basic essentials is going to grow 4 times to 8 times in the next decade. So this is a really, really hard problem that we have in front of us, or you could call it an opportunity. With this, I think the smart, and then we have the dubious distinction of having 13 of the most polluted cities in the world in India. So if you look at this whole smart city mission, this couldn't have happened at a better time. It's not just a smart city initiative, it's really it's an imperative for us, right? And we have to, and from a corporate standpoint, from technology companies which play in this domain, it's not just a business opportunity, but a huge opportunity for us to make a difference to the cities of our country. And it's, in my opinion, it's next best to a very meaningful and impactful corporate social responsibility initiative.
But can it, I mean, because you brought up corporate social responsibility, isn't this core, shouldn't this be core to your business and not something that you allocate, some part of that 2% to, correct? And in that context, I really do want to understand what the business opportunity is. Sure. And I'll come to each of you for that, but let's start with you, Sanjay.
Yeah, so our company, Honeywell, has been a very, very dominant player in deploying smart solutions in cities. And this started even before the smart cities mission happened in 2015. So we are currently deployed, our smart solutions are deployed in about 67 cities till date. We predominantly play in citywide surveillance and intelligent video analytics to understand incidents that need immediate attention and automatically trigger alerts. We also play in intelligent traffic management, number plate recognitions, and also traffic violations, detecting traffic violations, and providing automated generation of e-challans. Because one of the biggest problems in our country is, we have all the rules, but the enforcement of the rules when it comes to citizens, when it comes to the ground level, it's very hard. So when there is an automatic detection of a traffic violation, as an example, and an automatic generation of e-ticket, you get a ticket, there is no human involved. There are many things that you can cut out which come in the way of effective enforcement. We also have a lot of partnerships with the technology companies where we effectively have created a command and control center solution. We can talk about that a little bit later, and it's one of the technology plays. So what the command and control solutions, a centralized solution, provides you with is, because of its placement in the hierarchy in a city, it has the opportunity to integrate all the disparate multitude of subsystems in a city, bring it together in terms of orchestration, service delivery, etc. And on top of it, you can build layers of smartness where you have analytics and then very pointed service deliveries that Alok alluded to earlier.
In terms of the challenges, and each one of you can address this in terms of the rollouts that you all have already done and the challenges faced, has retraining, reskilling of the human beings that are sitting in the control and command centers, because I don't think we're still at a stage where we've done away with human intervention altogether, been one of the challenges, and in that sense, how do you approach it from a business innovation perspective?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I was going to talk about that as one of the challenges. Right now, you have all this technology, you have all these means, but I think one of the challenges in working very closely with the city officials is, when you bring all these systems together, typically all these solutions in a typical city scenario is, they're very, very siloed. They work by themselves. Even if there is smartness and technology infused into these services, they're very disparate, very siloed. And to bring them together, yes, you can use the technology, but you have to train the folks, and some of these city operators are not very aware of technology. That's really one of the biggest challenges that we have.
All right. From your perspective, Santhosh and Sanjeev?
Yeah, I'll actually bring 2 points over there. One, when we talk about bringing knowledge, right? We all, as technologists, we should also recognize the information and the vertical knowledge that people who run the cities today actually have. We can't really go back and say that we are going to rewrite everything that you know today. We have to integrate. I think our job really is to go find out what they know today and what are the challenges that they have and really integrate technology into this, right? The opportunities that we really have are tremendous, right? I mean, if you look at it, the percentage of water that we lose, the percentage of electricity that we lose, right? So if you just go back and look at several of those vectors, the opportunities that we look at is significant. And you're spot on, Syna, in saying that, look, we have to look at this as a business opportunity. It's clearly a business opportunity that saves a lot of things. It's clearly a business opportunity that creates a significantly more TAM for all the players in the system today.
From your perspective, Sanjeev, and I think we talked about this a little earlier as well, from a business opportunity perspective. So one is, in winning the tender and executing the project. Smart poles in Bhopal, for instance. How do you create a recurring revenue stream as a business from projects like this to then actually make it sustainable and to create, perhaps over a period of time, an entire division within your company that is just doing smart cities or a certain vertical of it. So is there thought around user-generated revenues? What are the thoughts around, outside of that one-time contract payment, what more you could do with the technology that you're deploying and the business that you're trying to build?
So like I said earlier, smart cities is one of the areas where we're investing, but it's actually a combination of technologies that we're working on a steady state basis. 5G and IoT being the predominant ones. In India, obviously, there's an opportunity to also leapfrog from 3G to 5G, so that's something we're actively looking at. And in IoT, in fact, a couple of years ago, I had given a keynote here on IoT in the areas of technology that we're working in IoT. For example, when you're going to have thousands of sensors out in the field, a technology that is very key to development of smart cities. How do you handle their battery life, long battery life, long connectivity range? So areas of technology like narrowband IoT, low power WAN, all those areas we've been investing in. So it's more of a systematic development. And whatever we develop from that, yes, there are products and technology that we can build towards smart cities. So that's sort of how we look at our investments in these technology areas. There is an area called emerging businesses within Ericsson. So some of these projects that I had mentioned earlier, like the project that we've done in Bhopal, these are typically driven out of that. It's more a consolidation of technologies that we have within the company and how do you purpose fit for something like smart cities.
The other point that we wanted to bring up was also collaboration, right? None of these projects, I believe, you can do standalone. As any of, you'll all run wonderful organizations, vast conglomerates in their own right within the technology space. But would you admit that even for one thin sliver of a project that you need to execute in a smart city, you can't really do it on your own, and that actually means collaborating with other businesses, and does that complicate your life, and to what extent does it? So Sanjeev, and then we can come to Alok.
Anything?
Okay, I can take that. So technology, so again, there are two perspectives perhaps. One is on a technology perspective, what collaborations do you need to have? And then you can envision what the technology stack looks like and who are the different providers at each layers of those stack and how does it all get integrated, which is more of a technical problem. I think the bigger challenge in terms of collaboration is in governance. When you have 3 layers of government with central government, state government, and what they call ULBs,
local bodies, urban planning bodies, yeah.
Getting everybody to be on the same page, and then they're operating in this SPV model, special purpose vehicle with a CEO and a board. I think the idea is great, but getting it to work in a predictable way where decisions get made quickly, transparently, I think if you're able to figure that out, that probably goes a long way towards having more progress. Some of the challenges that you mentioned earlier about how the progress has been low, in spite of quite a bit of money and attention towards smart cities. You mentioned 1.5% of the budget having been used. So I think that can be accelerated if that part of the governance can be accelerated, perhaps, yeah.
Alok?
Okay, so I have accumulated 3 of your questions. One is on CSR training, second is on the business model, and third is on the collaboration. So let me quickly address all. First of all, recently I got an opportunity to address in the Vidhan Sauda, there was all the city workers, they wanted to get a certificate on smart city workers. What does it mean? And from IEEE, we organized a 7-day course. And I got a chance to interact with them. And it's amazing to see that the levels that we operate and the levels of problems that are there in the downstairs.
Give us a glimpse. What were some of the things that came up?
Some of the things is the segregation of the waste products. And many a times the workers themselves, even though at the family level, we are segregating, but they are mixing it up at a later point. And that's a problem. That's a cultural change because they want to make their job easy. So it gets combined. Obviously, many of the families are not separating. That itself is a problem. But on top of that, this was there. So how could you bring that cultural change and what technologies and things? And we worked on some object detections that you can hold it, a camera, and you can see what kind of materials it is, and things like that. So again, it'll take more time to explain, but that's one level of training, awareness, CSR, and you can bring some good technology from your companies to adopt, and we worked with BBMP for that matter to deploy this technology. So that's one level of it. In terms of business model, Samsung is a group company. We have also constructions company also is here, so they are participating into the physical infra. We have Harman, that's a sister concern, which is looking into automotive and many other things. If I look into Samsung Electronics, one of the things that we are focusing on is the smart home, because we think there is a business, and it is a basis of growing to the next level of smart city. If each of the homes and the buildings are smart, it addresses a bigger portion of the whole equation. So we have built what should be on the devices, what should go as a hub on the edge technology, what should go on the cloud. We defined it, Arctic as a module, that you can build your systems. We have Tizen as an operating systems for IoT level. You can have OCF, Open Connectivity Foundations, that helps in connections, whether it is Wi-Fi, Z-Wave, anything of that nature. And then you can have SmartThings Cloud or any other cloud for that matter. That gives you a full service. So I believe the smart home for us is a very important topic. And alongside a lot of digital signage, you can look into the billboards that are there in the airports and other places. You can connect a dongle and change the content, LTE dongle, very easily. And it can actually help in awareness and many other kind of things. So those are some of the things we are looking as a first step in the business. In terms of collaborations, it's a must. I don't think there is a choice. And Indian government has also made many ventures, and there are CEOs of those special vehicle, purpose vehicles, SPVs, as they call it. And we have to work together. There is a front-ender who is looking more into the physical infra. There are companies like us, which is in the bigger platform level. And then we also work with many startups who are working in this space who cannot take those solutions directly to the smart cities, but through those digital platforms, they can join us and they take this forward.
Alok, if I have to ask you, how would you like to extrapolate the smart home in the context of a smart city? And within the smart home, its inhabitants, right? How do they become smarter? And how can then that become a reflection of how a city can become smarter?
So I call it smart space. That's a term that we use,
right,
which is smart city, smart building, smart home, smart building, and smart city. This is the order. Obviously, the smart city is a bigger conglomerations of many problems that needs to be addressed. But smart home, what it does is it tells the basic things, and that's an IoT problem. You have the sensors. You have these big TVs and fridges. They could act as we have a family hub that can act as a hub, or the TV or the mobiles that can be acting as a hub and coordinating those data at the family level. So you are not losing out on your privacy, but you learn how to take help of the data to operate your dishwashers when and what. So that's one kind of reflections. And then smart building is about energy optimization, and then it can go to smart city. I can just give one example of what Korea is doing. It's not about Samsung, but about Korea. They recently figured it out that, when you need, in the peak summertime, you need more energy. I mean, every country would require more power, right? And power generations, in the beginning, whether it is solar energy, nuclear energy, it doesn't matter. It's easier to, kind of generate, less expensive. But as you go up to meet that demand, you have to spend a lot of money because coal is not available and things like that. So what they started doing is called KPX. It's a Korea Power Exchange. It's not creating power, but it's kind of compromising. So what it does is companies like ours, they will give a flag, an alert, and then we could request whoever our subscriber has an app, they could reduce their consumptions and thereby, in turn, saving means creating and can go that power to somewhere else. So this is a program that they are launching at the country level to be able to manage that peak load.
But then it comes back to individual responsibility somehow, and I really feel that in a smart city, it actually becomes a citizen's responsibility to contribute in so many manners, right? It's not going to help if you have the best surveillance systems around the city if citizens are not going to be compliant, if we are not going to do our waste management ourselves, and so on and so forth. So just that one thought, let's gather around on what human intervention in a smart city for each of us should be like. What should we model ourselves on? And then we have about 10 minutes, so we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, I could go on that. Just want to touch upon the collaboration part, because that has the dimension of the citizen being in the center. So the success of this, we are three years into this smart cities mission today, right? And you read out the numbers in terms of progress. So if nothing, there is one thing that is extremely clear to all the stakeholders. It is the fact that this is it's a very, very complex and intricate problem to solve. And now, given the sheer complexity and the intricate nature of this problem, if there is one antidote, it's really the collaboration and putting the citizen in the center of this. When I say collaboration, it's collaboration which is multidimensional in nature, right? So you have the citizen in the center, collaboration between all these following parties, which is citizen, the city, the state, the companies, the utility providers, the technology, and even between the state and the cities is also extremely important, because some of the smart solutions that get proposed or recommended, which makes a lot of sense because it's all about all-round smartness that get applied. Some of it may translate to huge infrastructure projects, infrastructure asks. And for that, the city needs to have the complete support of the government, of the state government, sometimes the central government. So collaboration is really the name of the game. Now, end of the day, only two metrics matter on measuring the success of this, right? It's not the speed, right? Two things. One is, have we created a better quality of life, and we continue to create a better quality of life from all dimensions for the citizen. Second is, all our development, is it sustainable from an environment standpoint? These are the key uber metrics that will matter, right? And today, the way we are approaching this problem is, and this is an iterative process, like Alok was mentioning. It's very, very RFP driven. The government has put together a very conducive structure for collaboration, but we are learning. 3 years is a tremendous amount of learning. It's RFP driven, it's project execution, it's point solutions, but the real intent of this smart cities mission is this going to be outcome based?
Are you saying that we might just lose the larger vision in executing the piecemeal projects?
Right, absolutely.
Santhosh?
I think I cannot stress more on the importance of collaboration. And I want to take responsibility for us as technology companies over here on what all things that we can do together, right? Are we really looking at, I complained about not really having a strong blueprint or a strong architecture over there, right? What have we done as technology companies to collaborate together, right? I think we needed to work together much more to come back and create an opportunity that increases the business opportunities for us significantly better than what we have done. From that perspective, what we have done from TI is that we've actually had several subsystem designs that are actually very useful for several of the industrial activities that you're actually talking. And those are publicly available on our webpage. We actually encourage people to go back, download, and use some of those designs as such, right? So there are several things that we can actually try to enable the IP that we really hold in our companies to be available for a larger population of technologists to go back and use it. And we have to lead from the front on that from here, right? I mean, not really talking about what all citizens can do, but from our side, we need to look at it on what is that as a technology company that we can do. There is a lot more for us to do.
All right, Sanjeev?
Since the corporate citizenship part has been spoken for already by Sanjay and Santhosh, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, so forgive me, but I think as citizens, as individual citizens, I think very simply put, I think civic sense is the thing that all of us can do better in. in this room, I'm sure all of us are aware of that already, but that civic sense needs to translate at a much larger level. And this doesn't have anything to do with smart cities. It's just about keeping your city clean, hygiene, sanitation, traffic. Yep, that would be the simplest way I would put it.
All right. Alok?
Yeah, I think I started by saying that the citizenship awareness is very, very important. That's the foundations. But coming back to your point of smart cities, if you look into all of our villages and towns and cities together, we have one class of village, town, where you need to bring the potable water and the electricity to the first house. It's like toilet ek prem katha. That's the bottom line. That's where we are focusing. The second tier of cities, I think 2A, 2B, whatever way you classify, I think these cities we need to empower more. Ahmedabad, Pune, these kinds of cities, which are having power, and our India government has launched this program of Udan, connecting. So creating jobs there and also connecting them would help us not having this urbanization, moving all these people to 4 or 5 metros. This is unsustainable. So I think we need to stop that and probably focus more on these mid-tier cities, how they can be empowered and play a national role. And the bigger cities should look for international partnerships, in my opinion. Take a role model, whoever you like it, Calcutta with, I don't know, London, whoever it is, have a partnerships and try to pick up few interesting things from there and adopt it. It won't be emulatable completely, but you can pick up some good things from there.
I know Bombay is still trying to live its Shanghai dreams. But yes, let's open it up. I think we have time for about 3 or 4 questions. So yes, there's a gentleman, there's a lady there. So raise your hand, do a quick introduction of who you are, and ask your question.
Hi, I'm Deepa. I'm working in the ANZ, and I'm a software engineer working in the data warehousing area. So my question is with respect to the environmental effect of developing our cities into smart cities. So I was just going through the list of all the smart cities or cities which have been nominated to become smart in India. And unfortunately, I saw that most of the cities are big generators of e-waste or electronic waste, which comes as a byproduct of digitizing a city. So, and I also read that only 5% of the entire waste in India, which is actually recyclable, is actually getting recycled. So what as technology companies like yours, what are they doing, or what is your line of actually recycling these waste? You said about smart home, which also comes with a lot of electronic devices and sensors. In the end, these shouldn't get into landfills or oceans. So that is my question.
And also dealing with e-waste shouldn't be a CSR initiative. On that context, I'll let you guys take it.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the solid waste management and narrate an actual instance, right? So the solution is, the question was, how to infuse technology to solve this problem. In terms of solid waste management, let's take the garbage collection, garbage disposal, garbage segregation, right? So the solution is to have IoT sensors installed in all the garbage collection trucks and even the garbage bins. And an automated fashion of monitoring, automated vehicle tracking and monitoring system will allow us to understand, without actual manual intervention, the routes that the garbage trucks are taking, where they're supposed to be going, are they really going? Because this is a huge problem, right? Because they don't stop at the places where they're supposed to stop. They don't pick up the garbage. There is absenteeism. Are they really going and taking these waste? And there are weight sensors also that are installed in the garbage.
Reselling waste is actually a large industry.
Right. Yeah. And then you ensure that the routes are managed, the routes are followed, the pickups are happening, and the actual dumping or the segregation in the landfills are happening. So this is being followed by a city, Bhubaneswar, that's actually piloting this, right? So an answer to the question is, there are technology. This is just one example of the technology that's being applied actively in our cities which will go a long ways in managing the waste. That's my take on that.
On the issue of e-waste?
Three things that all technology companies are doing, not just Texas Instruments. There is a move to make lead-free solutions on everything that we do is number one. Number two, if you look at it, especially from TI, the kind of power that we use today is 10x smaller than what we used to do. Just 5 years back, if a battery for a particular application lasted a year, today we have several solutions where battery is there for good, in the sense it will actually work for 10 years, right? So we take much lower power than what we try to do. There are a lot of technologies that is already developed in segregating e-waste specifically to really figure out, right? And clearly, lower consumption is something that we all are responsible for, that we all have to do. But technology is available for us for a much better segregation of e-waste and really put it to use to come back and get better use out of what comes out of e-waste today. Those are the three specific points.
More questions? Yes, the lady there.
Good morning. I'm Shambhavi from Ahmedabad. Quickly on statistics, Gandhinagar was one of the first smart city model which was successfully launched, and the crime rate in Gandhinagar after the smart city went down by 30%. The question is, the company which supported this is Elite Core at that point of time, suffered a huge loss because of whatever, the tenders and stuff. Any view the panel has? Because this was a completely successful model on a smart city, seen its launch, beautifully working with all the command centers. So.
Right. Why don't you take that? I haven't quite
Yeah, I guess, the main point is the monitoring always helps, once that citizens are aware of, the activities that are going on and it's being monitored, and there are, all kinds of cameras, CCTVs, data that's being available, obviously the behavior pattern starts to change because of maturity and because of being tracked. So that's a very natural one, and it will happen. That's one difference between the developed nations and us, and more these data gets collected, we will see that same thing.
I think Shambhavi's question is more on the business side, and I think that was something that we tried to talk about as well, right? That one-time 100 crores that you might get when you win the tender to execute the project might not actually cover your costs over a period of time. So how are you as a business going to make money out of it and therefore make it sustainable? I don't know if the company folded, but if it did fold, then there goes 30% safety for women in Gandhinagar.
No, I think one of the challenges is really the creation of new and innovative business models, right? I think we are still learning, like we talked about earlier, right? I mean, this is the first time we're doing this in India. While it might be a technological success or a social success, but there has to be an economical success. And one of the key challenges in the Smart City mission is to how to make these new and innovative business models that the private investment is still interested. The private investors are still interested in these ventures. And we don't have an easy solution, but I think as we go through this model and the model matures, we'll probably have more.
I will give an example on a Peace City initiative that some other countries have done. A portion of the money that comes out of detecting a crime, suppose you're actually crossing a traffic light, actually goes back to the installer of the camera. So rather than paying the camera owner for the capital, I think the revenue that comes out of that can actually go back. And that's something that we have actually recommended to the government today.
All right, that's interesting. Sanjeev, you want to make a point?
Yeah, just on sustaining this. In my opinion, that's one of the reasons why things haven't moved fast enough, because how do you sustain it longer term? The funds that come from the central government, matched by the state government and so on, eventually ULBs are still loss-making entities. Because you also feel that for all of these enhanced services that they're going to add, how are they going to be able to charge the users for it? There's no way to impose tariffs, and there's reluctance on the user's part to pay those tariffs.
I know, we take it for granted. We think it's a right, but maybe it's not.
Yeah.
It's maybe something we need to pay
for.
So
it makes it difficult for ULBs to sustain that. That could be one of the reasons why things haven't gone fast enough.
I know we're completely out of time, but if there's anyone with a desperate question, we'll take it.
Hi, good morning. I think very, very good discussion and interesting thought. So my question is on the stakeholders. So basically, we talked about central government, state government. There are many civic authorities within the city who are also directly responsible and beneficiaries of the solution which gets implemented. And they become a key stakeholders to say that, yes, my solution is working or not. And that is where the monetary part and the solution saying that, do I approve your bills, and everything comes into place. Now, my question is very simple. As of today, there is a very limited framework from the central and state government on that part, but there's nothing on the civic local authorities to say that how do they add value so that this mission works. So do you really feel there should be a kind of a policy already existing, or is it work in progress, or a must needed, so that at least the civic authorities at the grassroots level are energized and help in the overall success of the mission?
One of the fundamental things that they bring is the overall coordinations and making sure that these divisions are not working in silos. That itself is a big value addition.
Yeah, there are SPVs, I think the point you're making. There is involvement from central and state government as well, through what Alok was referring to earlier as special purpose vehicles, I think that's the name. So there's coordination, there's a CEO of the SPV, so it's expected to run like a company. But I think still, the point that you're making, multiple bodies involved and collaboration between them and working off of a common platform, I think that has been a challenge. But at the same time, I think I still feel optimistic because if you look at the first 20 cities that are announced in January of 2016, and the last one of those, like you said, was announced yesterday, from the time that these things are announced to the time that even SPVs are formed, typical time can be about 1.5 years. That's the amount of time it takes. You've got to get the right people on board and so on. So in that sense, even though as much as we think that progress hasn't been good, if you look at in defense of the urban ministry, I think I was reading about the minister who had spoken about how some of these things, how long they actually take, and how considering all of that, progress in India is still something that the ministry at least feels proud of. And also compared to other cities like Barcelona, Singapore, how that had been a long journey. And relative to that, India has been on a reasonable path, but again, opinions differ on that.
Just one point on that. So the model is in place, the accountability model is in place. It takes a little bit of maturation. In our experience working with some of the city commissioners and the CEOs of these smart cities, it's very, very encouraging. I mean, these are highly, highly competent people, very, very focused on improvement, and I share the optimism that Sanjay talked about now. I think there is a lot of future here. And just want to quote something from a very popular quote recently. This is a mayor of a very advanced world city. His quote is like, if the 19th century was defined by empires, and if the 20th century was defined by nation states, the 21st century is going to be defined by our cities. So I think that speaks a lot.
All right, thank you, Sanjay, for that rap note and that quote. I'm not going to try and outdo that. So thanks a lot, gentlemen, and thanks for the audience to be engaged.